What's going on, everybody? It's Rev. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to this Omnicells article that Phoenix Labs posted called The State of Dauntless Omnicells. The goal of this article is to kind of just give insight onto what they're trying to accomplish with the new cell system. Since Cells 2.0 isn't really a thing anymore, it's just Cells 2.0 has converted into Omnicells, and they're just trying to convey more. I gotta say that I appreciate this. This is the type of stuff, like, the roadmap goes a long way. Articles like this definitely go a long way because we get insights of like what the game devs are thinking. It's like what they're trying to accomplish, and in giving their goal and what they're trying to accomplish with a particular system, it allows the players to give more constructive feedback that is meaningful and hopefully gets through and implemented into the game, and overall creating a better Dauntless experience for everyone. So let's just dive right on in. We got Cellular Breakdown. A true Slayer knows the strength of cells. Since their inception, they've been used to create and support players' playstyle and effectiveness. Players used to cell to maximize slaying skills while getting the most damage per second they could. But as time went on, the cell system ran into a wall. There were predominant meta builds that stole the show. Iceborne and Discipline were the de facto choices for most skilled players. We wanted to address this and add more variety to our gameplay. I mean, that's just straight up true. I totally agree with that statement. Omnicells weren't the first solution we came up with. At first, we were in talks of completely overhauling the cell system with what we called Cells 2.0, which got scrapped. The goal was to come through every cell and rebalance each one in order to increase diversity. However, as we started this incremental process, we realized it wasn't going to provide the solution we were working for. Balancing existing cells is still something we will tackle over time, but it wasn't addressing the core problem we wanted to fix. Because, I mean, with a new cell system, this was something that was brought to my attention very, very early from someone within that has a little bit more tie to the dev team than I, is that the way that it was shaping up to be was that it was just basically reshifting the meta. And reshifting the meta is good, but I mean, you need like seasons or something like that, right? You need like League of Legends style where you just kind of like move pieces around constantly and keep things fresh. But I feel like Dauntless doesn't have enough moving parts in order to keep that feeling fresh, you know? And this is something that I'm going to address a little bit later in this video, because even with the implementation of Omnicells, I don't really think that they're breaking the mold in enough to make it a meaningful impact on the player. Anyway, in the beginning, there were 5 cell categories, and all of them added passive bonuses. Since these were numerical bonuses, players were quick to figure out which numbers were the optimal ones. No amount of tuning could stop the best ones from always being used together. We realized we had to further develop our system and explore new options that went beyond passive boost. Now, this is something that you just kind of have to respect, like being in tune enough with the game and the player base to just be like, all right, we could just shift everything around, but let's implement a new system. Let's try something new. And I prefer that in a dev team rather than let's just shift the pieces around. So that's just me, especially for a PvE game. Intense cellular mitosis. We started talking about subclasses. What if we introduce a powerful new cell slot that defined a player's build and how they approach combat? This concept eventually coalesced into Omnicells, unique cells that would offer a player a strong mechanic that they could build their other cells around. This fresh approach was less about the granular balancing of existing cells and more about discovering new player fantasies and bringing them to life. Each player fantasy, class fantasy, player fantasy. It's Legion all over again. Each Omnicell started with a strong fantasy statement that guided its development. Discipline, Bastion, and Iceborne. I want to test my skills, playing a high-risk, high-reward playstyle. That's Disciplines. Bastion, I want to play with shield mechanics to give me offensive and defensive versatility. Iceborne, I want to be indestructible. And I'll read this last part first. These statements eventually developed into the initial set of Omnicells, and for us, this is only the beginning. We want to add Omnicells regularly with the goal of creating an extensive selection of viable playstyles that meaningfully change the way players approach combat. Spicing up combat, freaking awesome. I think that the way that they're going about it, not 100% the coolest thing, because, all right. Later on in this article, it's going to say Iceborne is the most used Omnicell, which makes sense. It's the first Omnicell that you unlock. It offers a lot of survivability, and for the most part, I would wager that for most players, people are just like, all right, I got an Omnicell, I'm going to equip this one, and then never change it, because it has lifesteal. It gives like a little bit of extra damage. It's an extra button to press, and who cares? No one knows how to use the trial shop anyway, so discipline is just not a factor here. Anyway, the Iceborne Omnicell is good all the time, but it's the least flashy, right? I think Iceborne needs not an overhaul, but it needs an update. I think the passive is fine, but I think that Iceborne being the most played, it needs a touch up. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this boldly. I think Bastion is the coolest designed of the three. I'm picking Squirtle as opposed to Bulbasaur and Charmander. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess Bastion is technically Bulbasaur because it's green, but I'm picking Bastion over the other two because it breaks the mold the most. Shield builds, not something new. Destroying your shields for damage, something new. Discipline, literally just a better Avenging Overdrive. Iceborne, it's the Iceborne cell, right? Like, it's the Iceborne cell. Lifesteal's not that crazy. Lifesteal is all over. Dauntless, and being able to like throw a projectile to interrupt and get unstaggerable state. Not super flashy, not super enticing in terms of like, I can destroy all my shields for big damage. That's really all I want to say. I think these sorts of Omnicells need to be more outside the box, right? Like, parrying isn't anything new, but it gets a pass because it gives things like the repeaters a way to interrupt, while the sword is just, we have two parries now, I guess, which is cool, but it's that we lost that uniqueness, which is something that I brought up like way back, is like the sword lost something cool in sacrifice for the rest of the weapons to have. In my opinion, it's like the repeaters being able to interrupt as the example. That's more of a band-aid, as opposed to the repeaters are just not a very tasteful weapon, right? Like, if they had more stylish moves, like you compare the repeaters to the Twin Suns, which are still repeaters, but you compare the two play styles and they're night and day in terms of like fun and stuff that you can do. And I think that when it comes to things like this Omnicell stuff, like taking out like any specific one, right? Like just think of Omnicells in general. When it comes to Omnicells, a lot of these things could just be like base things to a weapon that make them unique, right? Like, discipline doesn't need to be on the repeaters to get an interrupt. The repeater should just have an interrupt. You know, the sword should have a parry, and we'll read it. I'll go more in depth as we kind of read about the new ones, because I'm gonna rant about the new ones as well. So, since the launch of Omnicell, we've learned a few things. Right now, Iceborne is the most commonly equipped Omnicell. Yes, okay, not a big surprise. Discipline and Bastion are tied for second. We want to balance these to ensure a more even split across the board. Don't just expect new Omnicells, but tuning on existing ones as we move forward. This, I feel like it's not a balancing thing. It's just more of like when you get it versus when people stop playing, right? Like, when people stop playing, they probably don't have discipline, or they don't use Bastion because you need specific gear to like kind of get it going. Iceborne is always good. Like, you get Iceborne and you can use it immediately and you don't have to think about it. It's like, okay, most people probably don't even think to like, oh, how do I generate shields? Or, oh, like, how do I even operate the trial story and get all the currency? So that's something that needs to be revised. I think that putting discipline and Bastion, like, if if they're very concerned about how people are playing and they want to even out this, they need to make it just so all the Omnicells are available to everyone. Anyway, but tuning on the existing ones as we move forward. Speaking of new Omnicells, cellular meiosis. Meiosis? Our next Omnicell is Tempest. Tempest. I want high mobility to weave in and out of danger and attack at high speeds. Again, I haven't seen this. Don't quote me on this. This sounds like Surge from the Aether Strikers, and you just get additional attack speed. Players who equip Tempest will get a lightning fast dash, enabling rapid repositioning on the battlefield. We want these players to be moving around with their opponent constantly, honing in on weak points before readjusting. Tempest will release in patch 1.7.3, which is releasing very soon. Probably, I think it releases tomorrow. Who knows? But we're planning further than that with our next cell, codename Darkness. Darkness. I want to use my own health as an offensive resource. The Hunger. The Darkness Omnicell aims to explore the theme of being corrupted by umbral aether. The idea is to allow players to become empowered, but at a steep cost. We are currently experimenting with the functions of this mechanic, and we can't wait to share more. We will keep the Dauntless community updated as we approach the Dark Harvest in the fall. This is a cool idea. I like the idea of this like seasonal content being bundled together. Like if they do a cool update to the Dark Harvest, a bunch of events, cosmetics, all that good stuff like they normally do with the Dark Harvest, but and then they also release some, the Darkness Omnicell and some cool stuff to go with that. I personally thought that the Halloween like Shroud event was really cool. Even though I personally I didn't take part in it because I was kind of on that hiatus still. But I was watching other people do it on Twitch, and it seemed relatively cool. And so hopefully they either bring that back. Hopefully it's not recycled. Hopefully it's brand new. And this whole patch should be relatively large coming in. Usually it's around Halloween, so like October. And beyond Darkness, we want to add at least one Omnicell per season. The goal is to keep adding viable options until we have a rich pool of Omnicells to choose from. Once we reach a point where players feel that they have enough options, we will stop creating new ones. We don't know what the final number is, but what we do know is that we want all players to be able to find a playstyle for them. We're exploring options for Omnicells that increase grenade viability. Yeah, yikes. Grants buffs to fellow slayers and more. We've heard players' desire for a support role in Dauntless, and we're currently exploring what that would look like. See, I think Dauntless would have been way better on, like, this is just me, like, kind of amusing, I guess, because a long time ago, they were like, no, we don't want classes. We don't want classes in Dauntless. We don't, it's beyond the or it's like not in the vision. And here we are, we have soft classes. Like anyway, regardless of how you look at it, Omnicells, even the weapons, they're kind of just like classes and they fit a fantasy. But they don't play hard into their fantasy anymore. Like everything is very homogenized, and it reminds me a lot of like World of Warcraft stuff. Like all the classes in vanilla, classes had like a specific job. They were very good at specific things, and druids had healing over time. Priests had like direct healing and some like extra buffs to mitigate damage. Like everybody had their own little like really cool cooldown and their really cool roles and jobs, and some of the classes could do all three, but they weren't the best at all three, but they were still good at like specific things. Like anyway, here we are. We have kind of and then you take like WoW when it was in Legion. That was the last time I played, so that's like the only time I can really give you. Is you have like the classes being able to do everything. Everyone has like all these dashes, teleports, blinks, jumps, whatever. Everyone can fly. Everyone can stun. Everyone can AoE stun. Everyone has AoE damage. Everyone has single target damage. Anyway, everyone can do anything, and it's boring to me personally. This is just my opinion. This is just my experience through the years of gaming that I've been going through. When things get homogenized, things get less special, and it makes less of an impact on the player, in my opinion. So, what I would question, like Phoenix Labs, is like, what is this bringing that's new to the table, as opposed to something that already exists into the game? Because this just sounds like the hunger to me. Why not just make the hunger better? Or, you know, why do we have the hunger if this is just going to be a better revised version of the hunger? Like, the hunger needs a rework if that's the case. And then how is this different from Surge from the Aether Strikers? And why are, like, we just had an attack speed overhaul and now we're adding more attack speed into the game. I'm getting mixed signals from this one, and why isn't this like attached to Valiant Overdrive, right? Valiant Overdrive, you just like keep like slashing through them and actually have it deal damage. I think that would be like a way cooler way to implement this, right? Like, oh, you have this move and you like, but like you can implement this thing in cool ways that make sense for the weapons, like Valiant Overdrive and Surge. Like, making the specials more unique sounds better than adding a brand new Omnicell. Again, these are just ramblings of a Dauntless person that's been playing this game for way too long. That I did not know that was the end of the article, but I mean, let me know what you guys think. It probably sounds like I'm kind of bashing on Omnicells. I think Omnicells have been like a nice addition to the game, but I would just say, as like a final note to Phoenix Labs, if any of you guys are watching this, I would highly encourage you to think outside of the box what these Omnicells are accomplishing. Increasing, there's probably something telling you that, hey, grenades need to, like, no one's using grenades, or very few of the players are using grenades, or because the throwing mechanic doesn't really work that well, in my opinion, and they just don't have a wow factor. That's another thing I need to talk about on Omnicells, is like there needs to be a spectacle. The big slam, the big parry, it's cool. You get like an aura around you, but like Iceborne needs like a visual. Like, just make it so when you take damage, you build up charges of the icicle, and then like 5 icicles come out and they all go. And then, you know, if you hit them with 5, it deals double damage. And then if you're at full health, it deals double damage again. And it just hits really hard. Like, that's it. That's all you need to do. A little bit more damage and cool icicles flying everywhere. Virgil swords, you know, Virgil sword style. Pew, pew, pew. I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of this rant. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think of Omnicells. Let me know what you guys think of this article. Let me know how stupid I sound when I'm ranting about Omnicells. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out and have a good one.